Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of Musical Musings. We air this program every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and we broadcast it to you from Ratchamakan, University of Technology, Peranakan. I will be bringing this program to you in two parts. For the first part of the program, I will introduce an artist and a song to you. We will talk about the artist a little bit. Then we will discuss the main themes of the song, like what it's all about. I'll give you a little background about the song as well. We'll then go ahead and take a break and listen to the song. And in the second part of our program, we will come back and analyze the lyrics to the song. The lyrics are the words to the song. So since this is an English program, we will be taking a look at anything that's difficult to understand, any difficult vocabulary, slang, or idioms. Again, anything hard to understand. Then we will get to the latest news and updates from the university as well.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome everyone, my name is Gary Gray and I am your host for the Musical Musings program. I am an American English teacher here at Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. I have been here for almost exactly 8 years as of the time we're recording this program. And since the school year is a little less than a year, I have been teaching here for a full 8 years, eight school years. And I have been here at the university the entire time I've been in Thailand. One of the things I do like to do in my classroom is sometimes I will incorporate music into the classroom. One of the reasons I like to do that is if you're doing just normal, kind of formal English studying, you'll study a lot of grammar, verb tenses, vocabulary, things like that. But in conversational speaking, we use a lot of slang words, a lot of sayings which don't really mean what the words seem to indicate they mean. We may use words that aren't very common, words that you're not going to learn in a vocabulary setting in a formal classroom. And really, conversational English is probably the most important. After all, you're trying to learn English so you can communicate. Right? That's the whole purpose. If English is not your native language, why are you learning it? To communicate. And sometimes you need to have some of that formal education, sure. You won't sound very intelligent if you are using the wrong verb tense, using the wrong grammar, using vocabulary words incorrectly. There are some words, the way we use them, it's quite subtle. They may have a specific meaning, but we only use them in a certain way. So sure, you do need to do all of that classroom work as well. All of those kind of standard lessons that you would learn in the classroom that you're going to find in a textbook. You need to go over all of that as well. But it's also very helpful to know conversational English. In other words, knowing slang terms, knowing sayings and idioms, anything like that. So I like to incorporate music into my classroom, and that's why I am bringing you this English program. And right now, we have been on the air doing this program for about 2 years now. This is about our 100th episode. I haven't kept close track of our episodes. This is our 109th week, but we have missed a few episodes because I have been unavailable to host the program. Not sure how many we've missed. That's why I'm not sure what episode we're on, but this is Very close to episode 100. Might have been last week, might be next week, not sure. Somewhere right around now. So this is pretty neat. This is a pretty special episode for us. Episode 100, it's about number 100. And for today's episode, we're going to be doing the song Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell. I should point out, before we even get into this, that Joni Mitchell is not the person most famous for singing this song. She's quite famous for singing it. She's well known. Her version of the song is pretty well known, but it's not the most well known. We'll talk about that a little later, but I'll just tell you right now that the reason I picked this version is because Joni Mitchell actually wrote the song. So this is her song. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Joni Mitchell first. So she was born in 1943 in Alberta, Canada. You may not know where Alberta is. Maybe not. It's in the western part of Canada, but not all the way to the coast. All the way to the west coast. That's called British Columbia. Alberta's the next one over, just east of British Columbia. And even though you may not know Alberta, you might know, I think it's the biggest city in Alberta. If not, it's certainly one of the biggest. You may know the biggest city in Alberta because they hosted the Olympics not too long ago. And that's the city of Calgary. Calgary is in Alberta. Now, Joni Mitchell is not from Calgary. She's from a smaller location. But she is from Alberta, Canada. Again, born in 1943. She did eventually move to the U.S. I'm not sure if she still lives there now, due to the politics in the U.S. A lot of people of Joni Mitchell's mindset have moved out of the U.S. if they can. It's hard to move out of the U.S. I've done it. I'm here in Thailand, but it is a little hard. But because she's a Canadian citizen, she is also a U.S. citizen. She's lived there long enough, so she has dual citizenship. And because she's a Canadian citizen, it would be easy for her to move back. So I don't know if she's still living in the U.S. But she is a U.S. citizen. She's both Canadian and U.S. citizen because she moved to the U.S. a long time ago and has lived there a long time. Okay, so she was born in 1943, so that makes her over 80 years old now. So she is still performing, but she doesn't perform that much anymore just because of her age. She is still alive. She's still out there. I saw a performance of hers. It was for a special event, and that's pretty much all she does these days. I think it might have been just last year. So, yeah, she still performs. She still goes out there and sings. But not very often. But technically, she is still active. Okay? And as you can guess with her name, she's just a one-person show. Sometimes even one-person artists actually do have a backup band behind them because they have some instrumentation. But with her, no, it's pretty much just her. I mean, she has performed with other people before, like duets or things like that. But basically, it's just her. She plays guitar. So she comes out, she plays guitar, and she sings. And that's it. And her first performance, it's hard to say when she actually started because she kind of started playing music as a kid, pretty much. But her first paid performance that is known of is from 1962. So as far as when she became a quote-unquote professional musician, I guess once you're getting paid, you're professional, I guess. So her first paid performance was in 1962. So she became a professional musician in 1962. So that would have been when she was 18 or 19. I'm not sure whether it's 18 or 19. I'd have to check. Yeah, I have to check the date of the performance relative to her birthday. Her birthday, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think is in November. So it's pretty late in the year. So she may have only been 18 at the time of the performance. She may not have had her birthday yet. So at 18 or 19 years old, that's when she started her professional career. She kind of really started rising in the mid-60s, 1964, 65, 66. She started becoming a little better known. She still wasn't really famous, but people in the music industry, they kind of heard of her. They knew who she was. The big public, wide public, maybe some local people. She was doing a lot of performances in Canada. I think she was performing around Toronto. So people around Toronto who were into the music scene might have known her. But as far as huge popularity, it still wasn't that big. But she was starting to get popular in the mid-60s. By the late 60s, that's when she became really popular. And some of the other singers started to pick up her songs and perform her songs. Now, that may sound a little bit weird. It's not in this genre. Her genre is what we call folk music. I have surprisingly not featured many folk musicians on this program. I say surprisingly because I really like folk music. Most of it, certainly not all of it, but most of it is pretty easy to play on the guitar. I play guitar and sing, and I'm not very good. I'm not very good. So I can only play really easy songs. So folk music is great for me to play. And I'm so bad at playing guitar that I can't even play all the folk music. Some of that is even too hard for me. So why is such easy music popular? You'd think that wouldn't be popular, right? A kid can play that music. Well, folk music is really known more for the lyrics. It's known for storytelling. Okay? So that's what it's known for. It's known for its storytelling. And so that's why the music behind it is fairly simple. You don't get a lot of solos. You don't want the musical part of it to overpower the storytelling part of it. So it's a very specific genre of music. And you don't usually get a lot of crossover, even though I always tell you that genres cross over a lot. Folk music, because of the focus on the storytelling, you tend not to get a whole lot of crossover. You can get some, not saying there's none. For example, we featured on this program once, we featured Bob Dylan's song Hurricane. And that certainly has a little bit heavier folk music. So that has actually some rock elements mixed into it. So you can certainly do that. Since a lot of folk music is going to be guitar, you can certainly kind of move over into folk rock. That's not uncommon. So there's definitely still some crossover. Also some kind of southern rock, bluegrass type music that we have in America. Bluegrass may be something that you're not familiar with that term. They do like to tell stories in that genre as well. So you can cross over there a little bit from folk to bluegrass and more southern style music. So I'm not saying there's no crossover in genres here. But folk, compared to other genres, folk music does tend to be a little more clean in terms of folk singers just being folk singers. That's pretty much what Joni Mitchell is. She's a folk singer. Okay, so that's what folk singing is. It's really simple as far as the musical part of it. Again, usually, some of it still too hard for me to play. But it's generally pretty simple in terms of the music. And the lyrics are more important. It's there to tell a story. And because of that, it tends to be more kind of emotional because there's a story being told. And so people that perform folk music tend to really like each other's music because they have that kind of heart, that mindset to be writing stories, and so someone else writes a nice story. Oh, that's nice. So there tends to be a lot more what we call covers in folk music than in other genres. And a cover is when an artist performs a song written by someone else. Actually, not necessarily written, because it could be written for them, but written and originally performed by someone else. Okay? So that's why I said this is not the most famous version of the song. Several other people have performed this song that we're going to do today. And again, that's the song Both Sides Now. Several people have performed it. But let's get into discussing the song a little bit. So, it's unclear exactly when it was written, but the first known performance of it that's actually recorded is in 1966, and it was by Joni Mitchell. So it wasn't like it was written for someone else to perform. And when I say recorded, it wasn't actually recorded for a record. It was like a live recording that someone taped. So there's a video recording of it out there somewhere. Even all the way back in 1966, someone was recording a concert. So it wasn't like it was written for someone else. No, Joni Mitchell wrote Both Sides Now for herself. And in fact, another group, the first actual recording of it came out in 1967 by another band. I honestly, when I was doing the research, I didn't even write it down because they're not that well known. Their lead singer is a little bit well known, but the whole band, I mean, they don't even have a Wikipedia page, for example. The lead singer does, but the band doesn't even have a Wikipedia. So they're not that well known. But they did record it. Put it on an album in 1967. They did use a different name for it called Clouds, and that's not uncommon. I have heard it referenced as Clouds many times before, and you'll understand why when we get to the lyrics. But then in 1968, so this was again 2 years after Joni Mitchell had already been performing it. So again, that's why this is a cover. It's not written for these other musicians. The first person known to perform it in public, in front of an audience, is Joni Mitchell. So that's again why this song would be considered a cover. So in 1968, it was then performed by Judy Collins. And that is the version that became most famous. Now, I have heard that Joni Mitchell doesn't really like Judy Collins' version of it. I don't know why. I think they both sound good. And usually folk singers are nice people, so they're not going to say bad things about one another. I mean, I'm sure they fight a little bit. Someone uses your song and you don't like what they did with it. Yeah. So it doesn't really make you happy because you feel like maybe they ruined your song. So I'm sure they don't all get along, different personalities, things like that. The band Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, they're a folk band. They are known for not getting along, especially David Crosby. He was the one that caused a lot of problems. Sadly, he just passed away. He was actually my favorite one. Even though he caused a lot of problems, he was my favorite one in that band. And he passed away not long ago. The nice thing is when he passed away, the other band members who are still alive all said good things about him. They basically knew that he had problems in his life, whatever, so they kind of all forgave him, and they all just said nice things, and that was nice. Anyway, that's a little sideline there, but my point is they don't all get along. All these folk singers know. Some of them do hate each other. But you just don't. But when you see Joni Mitchell, you see Judy Collins, you don't see two people who you would think would not get along. And they're using each other's songs. Well, at least Judy Collins is using some from Joni Mitchell. And usually you have to get permission to use someone's song. And so it's a little bit weird. But anyway, I do know that Joni Mitchell didn't really like Judy Collins' version of the song. I haven't seen like a whole big long interview about it to hear what was wrong with it. I think Judy Collins' version is perfectly fine. I think Joni Mitchell's version is perfectly fine. Other artists have performed the song. Most of the versions I've heard are pretty good. There are a couple I'm not such a big fan of. And by the way, this is one of those songs that I can play. I do have a little bit of a difficulty with one of the chords because I'm not good at barring chords. That's for those of you that don't play guitar. To bar a chord is when you use your index finger to press down all of the strings, because you only have four fingers, and so you may need to press down all 5 strings. So you press all of them down with one hand, and then with one finger, and then you use the other 3 if you need other positions. I can't do that. So I have to kind of improvise and play the chords in a weird way. And that's what I do when I'm playing this song. Okay, so what is the theme of this song? The theme of this song is about perspective. Now, what is perspective? It means looking at things from the way other people might look at them. For example, sometimes you might have a misunderstanding with someone because you thought the situation was like this, and they thought the situation was like that. You had a different perspective on the situation. I mentioned politics a lot of times here. You even see it in politics. Sometimes people disagree on politics. Sometimes it is for bad reasons. Some people are not very well intentioned. But sometimes it's just a matter of, well, you think this is more important, they think that's more important. And if you talk about it, you could maybe understand why the other person thinks the way they do. That's their perspective. Maybe they still think the issue you think is most important is important. They might agree with you. But maybe they think this is either even more important or it will affect the issue that you think is important. And so we should focus on that thing first. Maybe that's their perspective. So it's about understanding perspectives. Okay? And it's, I guess, kind of a sad song. When you go through the lyrics, because it talks about not knowing love, not knowing life, so it's almost like looking at it from both perspectives actually confuses her more. Although it's not really about her. Her inspiration for this song came from something totally different. So it's not really about her. It's not really a personal song. So it's more just a story. But it is about perspective. Okay? So that is what the song is about. I told you it was very popular. I told you Judy Collins' version was the most popular. Judy Collins' version got to number 8 in the U.S. I'm not even sure if Joni Mitchell's version even got on the charts. But Judy Collins got to number 8, which is quite high. And that was again in 1968. I believe it came out on her record in 1967, on her album in 1967. But it was issued then as a single. So it came out by itself. That's what it means when they talk about a single in 1968. And so again, got to number 8 in the U.S. in 1968. Okay, again, Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell, song about perspective. Let's go ahead and get to the song. As always, for those of you who are joining us on YouTube, we will show you a link in the upper right corner. Please click on that because we cannot embed the video for copyright reasons. Everyone else, radio, streaming, we can obviously play the music, So you will be able to listen just fine. So let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Okay, welcome back everyone. That was Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell, and that is a song about perspective. Okay, so we did talk a lot to give you a lot of background there in the first part of the program. So the lyrics to this are fairly long, although the chorus is repeated several times. But it's fairly long, so let's get right into it so that we don't go too long with our program here. So we start out with the very first verse. Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way. Okay. Well, that all sounds very weird, doesn't it? Rows and flows of angel hair. Okay, if you think of an angel, especially in Western culture, they're white. So they have white hair. So rows of hair, and flows, it just means because it's long, so flowing hair. Long flowing hair. So white hair. Ice cream, if you think of like vanilla ice cream, it's white and kind of round and puffy. So ice cream, but it's ice cream castles. That's a little interesting. In the air. Feather canyons. Most of the time when we think of a feather, we think of a white feather. They don't necessarily have to be white. They come in lots of colors, but we usually think of a white feather. So she's just talking about all the different shapes of clouds, and all she's saying is that she has a good imagination of how she views the clouds. And these are all very nice things, right? Very nice things. So you can see it's going to go from good to bad as we go through this song. That's why I say it is kind of a sad song. So she's just saying that that's how she sees the clouds. All these pretty little things that create these images in her head of angel hair and ice cream and feathers, all these pretty shapes of these nice, pretty, white, puffy clouds. We continue with the first verse. But now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I could have done, but clouds got in my way. All right, so it's really important to understand the end of that verse. Because most of this makes sense, right? Most of this is easy to understand. Now they block the sun. So now she's looking at the bad side of clouds, right? They block the sun. They cause rain and snow. The last two lines, though, say, so many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. Sometimes people change the words to this song slightly. Some people say, so many things I could have done, but clouds got in my way. Well, why are the clouds going to get in her way? Okay, so we have this idea in Western culture of clouds in life being a bad thing, bad things happening. A cloud is a bad thing happening. In fact, we have a saying in English that every cloud has a silver lining. In other words, some bad event happens, something good will come out of it. Now, it's something I don't believe, I'll be honest with you. I've seen bad things happen, and they're just bad. Nothing good ever comes out of them. But I think it's a way to be optimistic, to look on the positive side. So that's why we have that saying, every cloud has a silver lining. So in other words, every bad situation, something positive will come out of it. It still might be mostly negative, but you'll get a positive out of it. So what she's talking about here aren't actual clouds. She's talking about things happening in her life. So originally, she did see things as every cloud having a silver lining. So all these clouds, they're flows of angel hair, ice cream, feathers. They're all good. It's all okay. They're still clouds. They're still bad things. But they're okay. They're okay. They all have their silver lining. She deals with them. Life is good. It's just a small little bad thing over there. But now they block the sun, they rain and snow on everyone. They're just in other words, they're just bad things. There's no silver linings. And so all of these bad situations have prevented her, have stopped her from doing things. So many things I could have done, but clouds got in my way. Okay, now we get to the chorus. Now I say it's a chorus. Usually with the chorus you repeat everything. They do change one of the words in every chorus, and it's what you're looking at. So in the first chorus, we're looking at clouds, because that's what the first verse was about. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Okay, so what she's saying, she's looked at clouds from both sides now, right? We had the good side, then we had the bad side. That's perspective, looking at both sides. From up and down. Still somehow, it's clouds' illusions I recall. So an illusion means something isn't what you think it is. And so that's why it went from good to bad. So she still recalls when she used to think this was good. But now she thinks it's bad. So the last line says, I really don't know clouds at all. So in other words, she just really doesn't know how to deal with these bad situations. She doesn't understand them. She tried to look on the bright side, but now they're keeping her from doing things. She still remembers looking on the bright side. She wants to be optimistic, but she's just confused. So she has trouble dealing with them. I may be reading a little too much with that by saying she has trouble dealing with them, but the fact that she writes this song about this, and again, it's not really about her. It's not about Joni Mitchell. She got this from another story. So she's just telling a story here. Okay, so now we go to the second verse. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel. As every fairy tale comes real, I've looked at love that way. So, okay, so here we're talking about love. I've looked at love that way. So moons and Junes and Ferris wheels. Okay, so moons you're talking about at night. So you can imagine this being about love and moonlight, and that's usually when you're going to go on a date or whatever, because you're usually at school during the day or at work during the day. So moons, that's romantic. We think of moonlight as being romantic. Junes, that's summertime. That's usually a more romantic. We usually think of that as being more romantic. You go to the beach, you go on vacation, you spend more time with people. Now here in Thailand, June isn't really considered summer. It's more the rainy season. But in the southern hemisphere, June would be the middle of winter. But of course, this was written by a Canadian and an American. She's both. Joni's both. So June is summertime. Good time to go to the beach, things like that, and time for vacation. And Ferris wheels, I don't know if you know what a Ferris wheel is, but most of you who are at least listening from the Bangkok area have probably seen one. If you've been to Asiatique, that's that big giant wheel that you can ride on. That's called a Ferris wheel. So here we're talking about going to parks and things like that. Again, something you might do as a young person who's in love. Older people don't usually go to them. Sometimes they do. And if they have kids, they might, because they'll go with their kids. But when you're thinking about young love, because she's probably young when she's talking about this. Remember, we're talking about things changing. So these are all good things. Moons, Junes, Ferris wheels. The dizzy dancing way you feel. So dancing, you're having fun. Dizzy means your head is spinning. So that doesn't mean like you feel sick. This is like a positive dizzy feeling, like so much going on. So just really enjoying life. Every fairy tale comes real. A fairy tale is like one of those stories you might tell to a kid. It's a little story that everyone knows, a little short story. The funny thing is a lot of them have bad endings, but we think about them as positive endings. Something like Cinderella, which does have a positive ending. Cinderella is considered a fairy tale. So every fairy tale comes real means that all these wonderful things are happening. So she looked at love that way. So it was wonderful. Okay, and then we continue with the rest of the chorus, with the rest of the verse, the bad side. But now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. So, it's just another show. In other words, the person doesn't really love you. They're just with you for whatever. For fun. To take advantage of you, for money, whatever. It's just a show. They don't really love you. And you leave them laughing when you go. So in other words, when this person leaves, doesn't mean you're leaving the other person laughing. A lot of times that's what that means when we say that. You leave them laughing. No, they're not laughing. When you leave them, you're laughing. Because it was just a show, just a game for this person that's leaving. And that's why she then says, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't let them just leave. Don't let them know that you were using them, that you weren't really in love with them. So if you do have at least a little bit of caring about them, just go and don't say anything. Don't give yourself away. To give yourself away means to reveal your secret. So don't tell them why you left. Okay? And then we get to the chorus, and it's again the same chorus, except we're going to replace clouds with love. I've looked at love from both sides now. So again, she thought it was good, now she thinks it's bad. And it's love's illusions, she recalls, so she still wishes it could be the good way, but she calls that the illusion. That's not reality. And so she says, I really don't know love at all. Okay, and then we have the final verse. Tears and fears and feeling proud. To say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way. Okay, this one's a little harder to understand exactly what they mean because it actually sounds a little bit negative, right? And usually the first part is supposed to be positive. It says tears and fears. But then it says, and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. So in other words, the tears and fears might be because she's nervous to say how she feels about someone. So again, we're sort of talking about love again. As you'll see, we're talking about kind of more than that. This verse is about life. In fact, you see that with this saying, I've looked at life that way, in that last line there. So we're talking about life this time. But that first part is about love again. Okay, dreams and schemes and circus crowds. So dreams, that's things you're hoping for, things you're wishing for. Schemes, we usually use that word negatively. That's again why this verse is a little more confusing. But I think she means this in a positive way, since the first part of the verse is usually positive. A scheme is like an idea or a plan, but we usually use that negatively. Like if you're scheming to get something, you have a plan, but you're probably going to cheat someone out of that to get what you want. I don't think she means cheating someone here. I think she means just having a plan. So because she says it right after dreams, right? You dream about being able to do something. You're dreaming of this. You have a plan. So dreams and schemes. And circus crowds, that's just people having fun. So this is just life, all about life being good. Even though, like I said, it starts a little confusing. Tears and fears? Doesn't sound good. But this is all about life being good. Because she's proud. She was able to say, I love you right out loud. We have dreams together. We have plans together. Circus crowds, all fun. I've looked at life that way. Oh, but now old friends, they're acting strange. They shake their heads. They say I've changed. Something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. Okay, so now she's starting to lose her friends. They're acting strange. Probably they don't like being around her as much anymore because she's not as positive a person. Nobody likes to be around someone who's just complaining all the time. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. They're just always grumpy. People don't like to be around that. And they say she's changed. Now, the way that line comes across is if she doesn't think she's changed. So what she's probably thinking is that the world has changed. These good things have all become bad. But her friends are saying, no, you've changed. Okay? And then it says something's lost and something's gained in living every day. All right, so something's lost. She's probably talking about her friends here. Although it does end, the very last part of this, on a positive note. But something's gained in living every day. So she's probably trying to end it on a positive note, because even though all of these things are bad, all these bad things happening with the clouds, love is just an illusion, life, we're losing our friends, all these bad things, what she's probably saying here is that we at least learn something. We learn a little bit more about life. We learn a little bit more about the world. We learn a little bit more about other people. So we grow as people. Something's gained in living every day. And then we just get the last chorus, where we've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose. It's life's illusions, I recall. I really don't know life at all. And that's it. That's it for Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell. Okay, so as we always do to end the program, I'd like to give you a few other songs to listen to by some of these artists. Now, with folk artists, it's a little difficult. Like I said earlier in the program, they like to record each other's songs. So I could give you a list of Joni Mitchell songs that's a mile long. Most of them aren't her songs. So I'm just going to give you 4 songs that I think are all her songs. Well, I'm going to give you 3 additional ones. One of them is Both Sides Now. I'm actually not certain about one of them being a song that she wrote. The other 2 I am certain that she wrote. So 4 of her most famous songs, and ones that she wrote, again, one of them she maybe did not. I'm not sure. She might have written all 4. Are The Circle Game, Big Yellow Taxi, Both Sides Now, which we did today, and Woodstock. So again, The Circle Game, Big Yellow Taxi, Both Sides Now, and Woodstock. I'm almost certain that she wrote The Circle Game and Big Yellow Taxi. I do know that she wrote Both Sides Now. Woodstock is the one I'm not sure about. She may have written it. Okay, so those are some other songs from Joni Mitchell to go look up. Again, you're going to find dozens and dozens of songs by her. Folk musicians like to share their music and perform other folk artists' songs. So there's probably 100 different songs you can find of hers on either a streaming app or on YouTube, whatever. But those are 4 of the songs that are her most famous and that she wrote. Again, I'm not sure about Woodstock, but I think she might have written that. The other 3 I'm sure she wrote, or pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure about The Circle Game and Big Yellow Taxi, but I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure she wrote those. Okay, so again, that's Joni Mitchell, and we did Both Sides Now. Thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. Please stay with us and tune back in next week for another great song. Also, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Musical musings, musical musings.